The morning sun cast long shadows across Camp Pendleton as Private First Class Maya Rodriguez adjusted her gear for the third time. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the constant need to prove herself in a world that seemed determined to remind her she didn't belong. At 5'4" and barely 120 pounds, Maya looked more like a college student than a Marine. Her dark hair was pulled back in regulation style, and her brown eyes held a determination that most people missed. They were too busy looking at what she wasn't: tall, broad-shouldered, or intimidating. "Look who's back for more punishment," came the familiar voice of Sergeant Jake Morrison. He was everything Maya wasn't: 6'2", 200 pounds of muscle, and the golden boy of Bravo Company. His blonde hair and blue eyes had charmed officers and intimidated recruits since he'd arrived at Camp Pendleton 2 years ago. Kept her eyes forward, focusing on her equipment check. She had learned early in her military career that responding to Morrison's taunts only made things worse. But silence, she had discovered, was its own form of strength. "I'm talking to you," Rodriguez, Morrison said, stepping closer. His buddies Corporals Tom Bennett, Rick Davis, Mike Johnson, and Steve Miller formed a semicircle around her. They were like a pack, Maya thought, always hunting together, always looking for the weakest prey. "I heard you," Maya replied, quietly, her voice steady despite the knot forming in her stomach. "I'm just trying to get ready for training." Morrison laughed, a harsh sound that carried across the courtyard. "Training? You mean the part where you fall behind and make the rest of us look bad? The part where you can't keep up with real Marines?" The words stung because they contained just enough truth to her. Maya had struggled in some areas of training. Her small frame made certain physical challenges harder. She couldn't lift as much as the men, couldn't run as fast as some of them. And in hand-to-hand combat training, she was often paired with instructors rather than her peers because of the size difference. But what Morrison and his friends didn't see, what they refused to see, were the areas where Maya excelled. Her marksmanship scores were among the highest in the company. Her tactical knowledge was sharp, her problem-solving skills exceptional. She could read a map faster than anyone, plan routes that others missed, and spot details that escaped even experienced Marines. "Leave her alone, Morrison," came a voice from behind them. Maya turned to see Lieutenant Amanda Foster approaching. Foster was one of the few female officers at Camp Pendleton, and she had taken an interest in Maya's progress from the beginning. "Just having a friendly conversation, ma'am," Morrison said, his tone shifting to respectful professionalism. "Talking about today's training exercise." Foster's green eyes narrowed. She was in her early 30s, with auburn hair and the kind of presence that commanded attention without demanding it. She had earned her position through skill and determination, fighting many of the same battles Maya now faced. "I'm sure you were," Foster said dryly. "Rodriguez, you're with me for pre-exercise briefing. The rest of you, find something productive to do with your time." As Maya followed Foster away from the group, she heard Morrison mutter something about special treatment and teachers' pets. The words followed her like shadows, adding weight to the burden she already carried. In Foster's office, Maya sat straight in her chair, hands folded in her lap. The room was sparse but functional: awards on the wall, a few personal photos, and stacks of training manuals. "How are you holding up, Rodriguez?" Foster asked, settling behind her desk. "Fine, ma'am," Maya replied automatically. Foster leaned back in her chair. "That's what you always say, but I've been watching and I've been hearing things. Morrison and his crew are giving you trouble." Maya hesitated. She had learned early in life that complaining rarely solved problems and often made them worse. Her father had been a Marine, killed in action when she was 12. Her mother had raised her with the belief that strength came from endurance, not from seeking help when things got difficult. "I can handle it, ma'am," Maya said finally. "I know you can," Foster replied, "but you shouldn't have to. This isn't about weakness or strength, Rodriguez. It's about respect. And those men need to learn that respect isn't earned through size or gender, it's earned through performance." Maya nodded, but inside, she wondered if Foster truly understood. It was easy to talk about respect and performance when you were an officer, when your rank provided a shield that enlisted personnel didn't have. "Today's exercise is important," Foster continued. "Urban warfare simulation. You'll be working in teams, clearing buildings, handling hostile situations. I want you to remember something. You're not here to prove you're as good as the men. You're here to prove you're a good Marine. There's a difference." The words resonated with Maya in a way she hadn't expected. She had spent so much time trying to match what the men could do that she had lost sight of what she could uniquely contribute. "Yes, ma'am," Maya said, and for the first time in weeks, she felt a spark of confidence that she left Foster's office. Maya's mind was already shifting to the training ahead. Urban warfare was complex, requiring not just physical strength but tactical thinking, quick decision-making, and the ability to adapt under pressure. These were areas where she could excel, where size and raw power mattered less than skill and intelligence. But as she walked toward the training area, she overheard Morrison talking to his friends. "Did you see Rodriguez coming out of Foster's office?" he was saying. "Probably crying about how mean we are to her. Can't handle a little ribbing. Shouldn't be wearing the uniform. Maybe she quit," Davis added. "Save us all the embarrassment of watching her fail when it really matters." Maya's jaw tightened, but she kept walking, their words carved deep, not because they were true, but because part of her still worried they might be. The doubt was like poison, seeping into her confidence despite her best efforts to stay strong. She thought about her father, about the stories her mother had told her. He had faced his own challenges, his own doubters, but he had persevered, had proven himself through action rather than words. Maya had joined the Marines to honor his memory, to continue a legacy of service. But legacy, she was learning, was heavier than she had imagined. The training area buzzed with activity as Marines prepared their gear and received final instructions. Maya checked her weapon one more time, adjusted her body armor, and tried to push the morning's events from her mind. Today would be different, she told herself. Today she would show them what she was capable of. But as she looked around at Morrison and his friends, as she saw the skeptical glances and heard the whispered comments, Maya realized that proving herself would be harder than any physical challenge she had ever faced. The real battle, she understood now, wasn't against practice, enemies in a training exercise. It was against the assumptions and prejudices of the very people who were supposed to be her brothers and sisters in arms. The abandoned buildings of the urban warfare training facility looked like a movie set from a war film. 3-story structures, with blown-out windows, debris-filled streets, and obstacles designed to simulate real combat conditions. Maya had trained here before, but today felt different. The weight of Morrison's words hung over her like storm clouds. Captain James Wright gathered the 43 Marines of Bravo Company in a loose formation. He was a career officer in his late 40s, with graying temples and the kind of weathered face that spoke to years of field experience. His reputation was solid, tough but fair, demanding but supportive of those who earned his respect. "Listen up," Wright's voice carried icily across the group. "Today's exercise simulates an urban environment with multiple hostile targets. You'll work in teams of 5 to clear buildings and secure objectives. Each team will face different scenarios, hostage situations, sniper threats, improvised explosive devices, and close-quarters combat." Maya listened intently, her mind already working through possibilities and strategies. Urban warfare was like a chess game played at high speed, where the wrong move could mean the difference between success and failure. "Team assignments are posted on the board," Wright continued. "You have 15 minutes to review the scenario and plan your approach. Safety protocols are in effect, but I want this to feel real. The opposing force instructors won't go easy on you." As the Marines moved toward the assignment board, Maya felt her stomach drop. Her name was listed with Morrison, Bennett, Davis, Johnson, and Miller. Of all the possible combinations, she had been placed with the 5 men who had made her life most difficult. Morrison saw the assignments at the same time and let out a low whistle. Well, looks like we're babysitting today, boys. Maybe they want us to carry her through," Bennett added with a smirk. He was from Texas, with a drawl that made everything sound like an insult. "Show her how real Marines handle business." Maya approached the group, her expression neutral despite the churning in her chest. "What's our scenario?" Morrison looked at her with mock surprise. "Oh, you're actually going to participate? I figured you'd find some reason to sit this one out." "I'm here to do my job," Maya replied evenly. Davis, a stocky Marine from New Jersey, laughed. "Your job? What's that, exactly?" "Stand behind us and try not to get in the way." Maya bit back her first response and focused on the tactical sheet instead. Their scenario was complex, a 3-story building with multiple rooms, suspected of housing terrorist operatives and possible hostages. Intelligence suggested at least 6 hostile targets, with the possibility of booby traps and sniper positions. "We need to approach this systematically," Maya said, studying the building layout. "If we stack up on the wrong entry point, we could walk into a trap." "Thanks for the tactical advice," Napoleon Miller said. He was the youngest of Morrison's group, eager to prove himself by following their lead. "But I think we can handle a training exercise without help from the peanut gallery." Maya forced herself to stay calm. Getting angry would only confirm their assumptions about her. Instead, she continued studying the scenario, noting details that might be important later. The building they would be clearing was known as Structure 7 in the training facility. Maya had studied it before during earlier exercises. It had been designed with multiple entry points, interconnected rooms, and sightlines that could work for or against the clearing team depending on their approach. "Here's what we're going to do," Morrison said, taking charge as she had expected. "Standard breach and clear. Bennett and Davis take point. Johnson and Miller cover the flanks. I coordinate from the center. Rodriguez," he paused, looking at her with barely concealed disdain, "you stay back and provide rear security. Try to keep up and don't shoot any of us by mistake." Maya bit her tongue. Rear security was important, but she knew Morrison was assigning her the position to keep her out of the main action. It was a waste of her skills and showed he had no intention of taking advantage of her strengths. "Morrison," she said carefully, "I've studied this building before. There are some tactical considerations that might. Did I ask for your input?" Morrison cut her off. "Look, Rodriguez, I know Foster's been filling your head with ideas about being some kind of tactical genius, but this is real training with real Marines. We don't have time for whatever theory you read in a book somewhere." The other men laughed, and Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. But she also felt something else, a cold, sharp anger that cut through her usual desire to avoid conflict. "I'm just trying to help the team succeed," she said quietly. "The team will succeed," Morrison replied, despite having dead weight to carry. The words hit Maya like a physical blow. Dead weight. After months of training, after pushing herself to excel in every area she could, after sacrificing social connections and free time to prove herself worthy of the uniform, she was still seen as nothing more than a burden. Lieutenant Foster appeared at Maya's shoulder. "How's the planning going?" "Just fine, ma'am," Morrison replied smoothly. "We've got our assignments sorted out." Foster looked at the tactical sheet, then at the team formation Morrison had outlined. Her expression remained neutral, but Maya caught a slight tightening round her eyes. "Interesting approach," Foster said. "Rodriguez, what's your assessment of the scenario?" Maya hesitated, aware that Morrison and his friends were watching her closely. But Foster had asked a direct question, and Maya had been trained to respond honestly to superior officers. "The building has multiple entry points, but the main entrance funnels into a choke point," Maya said. "If there are hostiles waiting, they could pin down anyone coming through the front. The side entrance on the second floor might provide better tactical advantage, but it requires a different approach to room clearing." Foster nodded approvingly. "Good analysis. Morrison, did you consider alternative entry points in your planning?" Morrison's jaw tightened. "We were planning to adapt as needed based on what we found, ma'am." "Adaptation is important," Foster agreed, "but so is thorough planning. You might want to listen to Rodriguez's input. She scored highest in the company on tactical assessment exercises." After Foster moved on to check with other teams, Morrison turned to Maya with cold anger in his eyes. "Congratulations, Rodriguez. You just made me look like an idiot in front of an officer." "I didn't mean to," Maya began. "Save it," Morrison snapped. "But here's what's going to happen. You're going to shut up, follow orders, and try not to embarrass the rest of us. And if you ever show me up like that again, we're going to have a serious problem." Maya felt something inside her begin to shift. For months, she had absorbed their insults, endured their mockery, and tried to prove herself through quiet competence. She had told herself that eventually her performance would speak for itself, that patience and perseverance would win respect, but standing there, surrounded by men who saw her as nothing more than an obstacle to overcome, Maya realized that patience wasn't going to be enough. Some people, she understood now, would never see her as anything other than what they had already decided she was. 5 minutes until exercise begins, came the announcement over the loudspeaker. Maya checked her weapon one final time and adjusted her gear. Her hands were steady now, her mind sharp and focused. The anger she felt wasn't the hot, destructive kind that led to mistakes. It was cold and precise, the kind that could be channeled into performance. Morrison might see her as dead weight, but Maya knew something he didn't. She had been preparing for this moment her entire life, even if she hadn't realized it. Every challenge she had faced, every time she had been underestimated or dismissed, had been building toward something. As they moved toward Structure 7, Maya found herself thinking about her father again, but this time, instead of feeling the weight of his legacy, she felt its strength. He had faced his own doubters, his own battles. He had proven himself. Not through words, but through action. Today, Maya decided. She would do the same. The building loomed ahead of them, its empty windows like dead eyes watching their approach. Inside, instructor Marines waited to play the role of hostile forces. They would be armed with simulation rounds and scenario cards that would determine the outcome of various tactical situations. But Maya sensed that the real test wouldn't come from the instructors inside the building. It would come from the 5 men beside her, who had already decided she would fail before the exercise even began. They were about to learn something about assumptions. Maya thought grimly. They were about to learn that sometimes the person you least expect can surprise you. The moment they approached Structure 7, Maya knew something was wrong. Morrison's tactical plan was flawed from the start, but her attempts to voice concerns had been shut down so firmly that she had retreated into watchful silence. "Remember, Rodriguez," Morrison whispered as they stacked up outside the main entrance. "Stay back and try not to get us all killed." The other Marines chuckled quietly, but Maya was focused on the building's windows. She had noticed movement in the third-floor corner room, just a brief shadow, but enough to suggest a sniper position. Morrison's plan called for a direct assault through the main entrance, which would expose them to fire from that exact position. "Morrison," she whispered urgently, "third floor, corner window, possible." "Shut up," he hissed back. "Radio silence until we're inside." Maya bit her tongue and fell back to her assigned position at the rear of the formation. She watched as Morrison gave hand signals to Bennett and Davis, who prepared to breach the main door. Johnson and Miller took flanking positions, their weapons ready. The door exploded inward with a crash of splintering wood. Bennett and Davis rushed through, followed by Morrison. Almost immediately, the sharp crack of simulation rounds filled the air. "Contact front," Davis shouted. Maya heard the electronic beeping that indicated he had been killed by the opposing force. Through her radio earpiece, she heard the exercise controller's voice. "Hostile sniper, third floor, has clear field of fire on main entrance. Assault team taking casualties." Bennett's voice came through the radio next. "I'm hit. Multiple hostiles in the lobby." Morrison's tactical plan was falling apart within 30 seconds of execution. Maya watched from her position outside as Johnson and Miller tried to provide covering fire through the windows. But they were shooting at shadows, while the real threats, including the sniper she had tried to warn about, picked them off one by one. "Miller's down," came the controller's voice. "Johnson's down. Team leader, you have one effective member remaining." Maya's heart pounded as she realized that Morrison was alone inside the building, surrounded by hostile forces that he hadn't properly anticipated. Her orders were to provide rear security, to stay outside and watch for flanking maneuvers. But her training told her something different. A good Marine didn't abandon teammates, even teammates who treated her badly. "Rodriguez, get in here." Morrison's voice crackled through the radio, no longer confident, but edged with desperation. "I need support." Maya looked at the main entrance, where simulation rounds continued to pour out. Going through there would mean certain death in the exercise. But she remembered the building's layout, remembered the alternative entry points she had tried to discuss during planning. Instead of rushing toward the main entrance, Maya circled around to the building's north side. There was a ground floor window that provided access to a maintenance room, which connected to the main structure through a series of hallways that bypassed the lobby entirely. Moving quickly but quietly, Maya reached the window and found it unlocked. Part of the scenario design. She slipped inside, weapon ready, and immediately oriented herself within the building's layout. The maintenance room was empty, as she had expected, but she could hear gunfire echoing from the lobby area, along with Morrison's increasingly frantic radio calls for backup. Maya moved through the maintenance area into a side hallway, her heart hammered, but her hands were steady. This was what she had trained for, what she had studied. Urban warfare wasn't just about firepower, it was about thinking faster than your opponents, finding angles they didn't expect. She reached a stairwell that would take her to the second floor. According to the building plans she had memorized, she could approach the sniper position from behind while Morrison dealt with the ground floor hostiles. As she climbed the stairs, Maya heard Morrison's voice through the radio. "Where the hell is my backup? Rodriguez, what's your position?" Moving to neutralize the sniper, Maya whispered back, "Negative. I need you in the lobby now." Maya ignored the order. She had identified the real threat, and she knew how to eliminate it. Morrison's tactical inexperience was showing. He was focused on the immediate danger in front of him, while ignoring the bigger picture. The second floor was a maze of offices and connecting rooms. Maya moved methodically, clearing each space before advancing. She had studied this building layout for hours during previous training sessions, memorizing sight lines and potential ambush points that Morrison had dismissed as unnecessary detail. Through a window, Maya caught sight of movement on the building's exterior. Two instructor Marines were positioning themselves to simulate an enemy flanking maneuver, exactly the kind of rear security threat that Maya's original position was meant to counter. She made a split-second decision. Instead of continuing toward the sniper position, she moved to a window that overlooked the flanking team's approach route. Carefully, she lined up her shots and fired 2 quick bursts of simulation rounds. "Hostile flanking team neutralized," came the controller's voice. "Rear security has been maintained." Maya felt a brief surge of satisfaction, but there wasn't time to celebrate. Morrison's situation in the lobby was deteriorating rapidly, and the sniper was still active. She reached the 3rd floor and began moving toward the corner room where she had spotted the sniper. The hallway was narrow, with multiple doorways that could conceal threats. Maya moved carefully, checking each angle before exposing herself to the next. She found the sniper position in a room overlooking the main entrance. The instructor Marine playing the hostile was focused on targets below and didn't notice Maya's approach until it was too late. "Sniper neutralized," Maya whispered into her radio as she fired the simulation rounds. "Confirmed," the controller announced. "3rd floor sniper is down." With the sniper eliminated, Maya began working her way back down through the building. She could still hear sporadic gunfire from the lobby area, indicating that Morrison was still engaged with hostile forces. But as Maya reached the 2nd floor, she heard something that made her blood run cold. Morrison's voice through the radio, but not directed to her. "Yeah, she's supposed to be providing rear security," but Rodriguez went off script. He was saying to someone, probably hiding somewhere, scared to get into the real fighting. Maya realized that Morrison was talking to one of the instructor Marines during a brief lull in the action. He was explaining away her absence, making it sound like she had abandoned her post out of cowardice rather than tactical necessity. The words hit her harder than any physical blow. Even as she was working to save his mission, Morrison was laying the groundwork to blame her for whatever went wrong. Maya felt something break inside her chest, not her resolve, but her patience. Her willingness to quietly endure insults and assumptions, her belief that proving herself through performance would eventually earn respect. She keyed her radio. "Morrison, what's your current position?" "About time you checked in," he replied sharply. "I'm pinned down in the lobby's northwest corner. Where the hell have you been?" "Completing the mission," Maya said quietly. She made her way to the lobby, through a side entrance, moving with a kind of tactical precision that her training had drilled into her. The lobby was a mess of overturned furniture and scattered debris, designed to simulate the aftermath of urban combat. Morrison was crouched behind a makeshift barricade, his weapon trained on doorways where the remaining hostile forces were positioned. He looked up as Maya approached, and she saw surprise flicker across his face. "How did you get in here?" he demanded. "Alternative entry point," Maya replied. "The one I tried to tell you about during planning." Morrison's expression darkened. "You were supposed to follow orders, not freelance your own mission." Maya looked at him steadily. "My mission was to help the team succeed. The sniper that was picking off our people neutralized a flanking team that was about to overrun our rear position. Neutralized the tactical plan that was getting everyone killed. I adapted it." "You disobeyed orders," Morrison snapped. "I completed objectives," Maya replied. The exercise controller's voice came through their radios. "Remaining hostile forces have been eliminated. Exercise complete. All teams report to debriefing area." As they left the building, Maya could see the other Marines from their team, Bennett, Davis, Johnson, and Miller, waiting in the casualty collection point, where dead participants observed the remainder of the exercise. Their expressions were a mixture of embarrassment and anger. They had been eliminated early in the exercise, their tactical plan exposed as inadequate within minutes of execution. Morrison walked beside Maya, his jaw tight with frustration. "Just so we're clear, Rodriguez, your little hero act doesn't change anything. You got lucky today, but luck doesn't make you a Marine." Maya stopped walking and turned to face him. For months, she had absorbed his contempt, his dismissive comments, his assumption that she was weak. She had told herself that patience would eventually win respect. But standing there, having just proven her competence in the most direct way possible, Maya realized that some people would never give her the respect she had earned. Some people were too invested in their assumptions to let evidence change their minds. "You're right, Morrison," she said quietly. Luck doesn't make you a Marine. Neither does size or gender or the ability to intimidate someone smaller than you. Morrison's eyes flashed with anger. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm done trying to prove myself to people who have already decided what they think about me. Maya replied, I know what I'm capable of. Today proved what I'm capable of. And if that's not enough for you, that's your problem, not mine. She walked away, leaving Morrison standing there with his mouth open, but Maya knew this wasn't over. If anything, she had just made things worse for herself. Morrison's pride had been wounded, and men like him didn't forget wounds like that as she headed toward the debriefing area. Maya realized that she had reached a crossroads. She could continue trying to quietly prove herself, hoping that eventually, her performance would speak for itself. Or she could stop caring what Morrison and his friends thought and focus on being the best Marine she could be. The choice, she realized, would determine not just her career but who she became as a person. Debriefing session was held in a sterile conference room that smelled of coffee and cleaning supplies. Captain Wright stood at the front, reviewing performance data from the urban warfare exercise while the Marines sat in uncomfortable plastic chairs. Maya found herself sitting alone, as she often did. Morrison and his crew had claimed seats on the opposite side of the room, their body language making it clear that her success in the exercise had only deepened their resentment. Overall performance was mixed. Wright began, his weathered face showing no emotion. Some teams demonstrated excellent tactical thinking and adaptability. Others showed that book learning doesn't always translate to field performance. He pulled up a tactical display on the room's monitor. Team 7 had an interesting exercise. Initial casualties were heavy due to inadequate reconnaissance and poor entry point selection. Maya saw Morrison's jaw tighten as Wright's analysis continued. The captain's review was clinical but damning. Every tactical error was laid out in detail. Every missed opportunity highlighted. However, Wright continued, the team recovered due to excellent individual initiative and tactical adaptation. The sniper threat was neutralized through creative problem-solving and the flanking maneuver was countered through effective positioning. Wright's eyes found Maya in the crowd. Private Rodriguez, explain your decision-making process during the exercise. Maya felt 30 pairs of eyes turned toward her. She stood slowly, her heart pounding but her voice steady. Sir, the initial tactical plan exposed the team to unnecessary risk. The main entrance was covered by the sniper position, and our approach made us vulnerable to flanking maneuvers. So you disobeyed orders? Wright asked, his tone neutral. Maya hesitated. This was the moment that could define her military career. She could take the safe route, accept blame for not following Morrison's plan, and continue trying to prove herself quietly. Or she could tell the truth. Sir, my orders were to help the team complete the mission. When the initial plan failed, I adapted to achieve the objectives using alternative methods. Wright nodded slowly. And Sergeant Morrison, what's your assessment of Private Rodriguez's performance? Morrison stood, his face flushed with barely controlled anger. Sir, Rodriguez abandoned her assigned position and freelanced her own mission. In a real combat situation, that kind of undisciplined behavior could get people killed. Interesting perspective, Wright replied. But according to the exercise controllers, Rodriguez's actions directly prevented team casualties and mission failure. How do you reconcile that with your assessment? The room was dead silent. Maya could feel the tension crackling between Morrison and Wright, could see the other Marines watching the confrontation with fascination. Morrison's mouth opened and closed several times before he found his voice. Sir, following orders is fundamental to military discipline. Success doesn't justify insubordination. Wright studied Morrison for a long moment. Sergeant, in your opinion, what should Rodriguez have done when she identified tactical flaws in the mission plan? She should have followed orders and trusted her team leader's judgment, Morrison replied firmly. Even if those orders led to mission failure and unnecessary casualties. Morrison's face grew redder. Sir, that's a hypothetical question. My tactical plan was sound. Wright pulled up more data on the monitor. Your tactical plan resulted in 14 casualties within the first 2 minutes of the exercise. The exercise controllers classified it as a complete tactical failure. How is that sound planning? Maya watched Morrison struggle with the question. She almost felt sorry for him. His entire worldview was being challenged in front of his peers, and he had no good answers. Permission to speak freely, sir? Morrison asked. Granted. Rodriguez got lucky, sir. She stumbled onto a successful approach, but that doesn't mean she's a good Marine. In a real combat situation, luck runs out. Wright's expression hardened. Sergeant Morrison, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Rodriguez's performance today demonstrated extensive knowledge of building layouts, tactical flexibility, and sound decision-making under pressure. That's not luck, that's competence. The captain turned back to address the entire room. Let me be clear about something. The Marine Corps doesn't care about your personal opinions regarding your fellow Marines. It cares about performance, dedication, and the ability to complete missions effectively. Wright's eyes swept across Morrison and his friends. If any of you have issues with a Marine's gender, size, or appearance, you need to resolve those issues immediately, because the Corps has no use for Marines who let personal prejudices interfere with mission effectiveness. After the debriefing ended, Maya gathered her gear slowly, hoping to avoid another confrontation. But as she headed for the exit, Morrison and his crew blocked her path. "Congratulations, Rodriguez," Morrison said, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "You managed to make us all look bad in front of the captain." "That wasn't my intention," Maya replied quietly. Bull Bennett interjected. "You've been playing politics since day one, sucking up to Foster and now making Morrison look incompetent." Maya felt her patience finally snap. "Making Morrison look incompetent? I didn't have to do anything. His tactical plan did that all by itself." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Morrison stepped closer, using his size to intimidate her. "You want to say that again, Rodriguez?" Maya looked up at him, no longer caring about consequences. "Your plan was flawed from the beginning. I tried to tell you about the sniper position, but you were too arrogant to listen. I tried to suggest alternative entry points, but you dismissed them without consideration. Your ego got your team killed, not my performance." Morrison's hands clenched into fists. "You think you're so smart, don't you? Think you know better than Marines who've been doing this longer than you?" "I think I know better than Marines who refuse to adapt when their plans fail," Maya shot back. The confrontation was escalating rapidly. Davis and Johnson moved to flank Maya, while Miller positioned himself to block anyone from interfering. This was no longer about tactical disagreements, it was personal. "Here's what's going to happen, Rodriguez," Morrison said, his voice low and threatening. "You're going to learn your place in this unit. No more grandstanding, no more showing off, no more making the rest of us look bad." "And if I don't?" Maya asked. Morrison smiled coldly. "Then we'll have to teach you some lessons about respect and teamwork." Maya understood the threat clearly. She was being told to deliberately underperform, to make herself smaller and less capable, or face retaliation from Morrison's group. For a moment, she considered it. Life would be easier if she just accepted their terms, kept her head down, and avoided confrontation. She could complete her service quietly and move on with her life. But then she thought about her father, about the uniform she wore, about the oath she had taken. She thought about all the women who would come after her, who would face the same challenges and the same prejudices. "No," Maya said simply. Morrison's expression darkened. "What did you say?" "I said no. I won't pretend to be less than I am to make you feel better about yourself. I won't deliberately fail to protect your ego, and I won't be intimidated by Marines who are more concerned with their image than with mission success." The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken violence. Maya could see the calculation in Morrison's eyes, the weighing of consequences against his desire for revenge. "This isn't over, Rodriguez," he said finally. "No," Maya agreed. "It's not." As Morrison and his friends walked away, Maya realized that she had crossed a line from which there was no return. The quiet war of words and subtle harassment was about to become something much more dangerous, but for the first time since arriving at Camp Pendleton, Maya felt truly free. She had stopped trying to prove herself to people who would never accept her, and started standing up for the principles she believed in. The real test, she knew, was yet to come. 3 days after the confrontation, Maya knew something was wrong. Morrison and his crew had been too quiet, too polite in their interactions with her. They smiled when officers were around and maintained professional demeanor during official training. But Maya could feel the menace underneath. The setup came during evening physical training. The company was running combat conditioning drills. In the gym, a series of exercises designed to simulate the physical demands of battlefield situations. Maya had always performed well in these sessions, her smaller size offset by her endurance and technique. "All right, people, Sergeant first," Class Williams called out. "We're finishing with hand-to-hand combat scenarios. Partner up for controlled sparring." Maya looked around for a partner and found herself facing Morrison. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Looks like it's you and me, Rodriguez," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Hope you're ready for Some real Marine training. Maya's stomach clenched. She had trained in hand-to-hand combat. But Morrison outweighed her by nearly 80 pounds and had several inches of reach advantage. In controlled training with proper supervision, the size difference will